It was past midnight when Daniel's old pickup truck groaned to a stop beside the flickering streetlight. The rain had been relentless for hours, drenching the city in a blur of lights and shadows. He rubbed his eyes, exhaustion clawing at him after a 12-hour shift at the auto shop, knowing he'd still have to get home, check on his little girl, and pack her lunch for school before collapsing for a few hours of sleep. But as he was about to drive off, he saw her, a woman in a glittering dress, stumbling out of a downtown bar, barely able to stand. Her car keys dangled from her shaking hand, her high heels slipping against the wet pavement. Something in him, maybe instinct, maybe kindness, made him stop. Before we dive deeper, if you believe in kindness, redemption, and second chances, then please take a moment to like this video, subscribe to Kindness Tales, and share it with someone who believes the world still has good people left. Your support helps stories like this reach hearts that need hope. Daniel didn't recognize her at first through the blur of rain, but as he stepped closer, he froze. It was her. Amelia Grant. His boss. The owner of the very auto company he worked for, the woman who walked past him every morning without a glance, who barked orders through her assistant, who made him feel invisible. He'd only ever seen her in her polished office, wearing confidence like armor. But tonight, that armor had shattered. Her eyes were red, her mascara streaked, her expression lost between anger and heartbreak. She was clearly in no condition to drive, yet she stubbornly reached for her car door. Daniel rushed over and gently took the keys from her hand. She turned to him, startled, her voice slurred but still carrying a trace of authority. "Give them back." "I'm fine," she muttered. But she wasn't. The smell of alcohol was heavy, her knees weak. Daniel didn't argue. He simply said, "You're not fine, Ms. Grant. Let me call you a cab, or I'll take you home." She glared at him at first, but then the fight in her eyes faded. Maybe it was the sincerity in his voice or the exhaustion that weighed her down. Eventually, she nodded, whispering something he couldn't catch before collapsing against his shoulder. He didn't know where she lived, so he searched her purse for an address, hesitating, respectful, but desperate. When he found her driver's license, he gently helped her into the passenger seat of his truck. The contrast was surreal, his battered old vehicle carrying the woman who usually arrived in sleek black cars. As the rain softened into a drizzle, he drove her through the quiet streets, the city lights reflecting off her pale, tear-stained face. Something about that moment stayed with him. She looked human, vulnerable in a way that stripped away every layer of wealth and power. At her apartment complex, Daniel carried her inside, unlocking the door with trembling hands. The place was spacious but cold, every surface too perfect, too untouched. He laid her on the couch, covered her with a blanket he found nearby, and turned off the lights. For a moment, he stood there, watching her breathe. He didn't understand why, but something about helping her that night felt right, like a quiet act of fate. Then he left, closing the door softly behind him. The next morning, Daniel tried to shake the memory away. He had no intention of mentioning what happened. He couldn't risk it. He was just an employee, a single father who needed his job to keep his daughter fed and in school. His life revolved around early mornings, cheap coffee, and the laughter of his 8-year-old daughter, Lily, who was his entire world. His wife had passed away years ago, leaving him to balance work, parenting, and loneliness. Every day, he told himself to endure, that things would get better someday. When he arrived at work that morning, Amelia's luxury car was already parked outside. His stomach tightened. She must remember. She'd probably fire him for seeing her like that, for daring to intervene. But when she walked through the garage, she looked as composed as ever, dressed immaculately, her hair in a neat bun. For a while, she didn't even glance at him. Maybe she truly didn't remember. Maybe last night was just a fleeting blur in her memory. Relief and disappointment tangled in his chest. But just before lunch, everything changed. Amelia appeared beside his workbench, quietly watching him fix a car engine. Her perfume was faint but unmistakable. He turned, startled, wiping the grease from his hands. For a long moment, neither spoke. Then she said softly, "You drove me home last night." It wasn't a question. Daniel froze, unsure how to respond. Yes, ma'am. You weren't feeling well." She nodded slowly, her eyes searching his face. "You could have left me there." "You didn't." There was something new in her voice, something fragile. She hesitated, then added, "Thank you." The words were simple, but the sincerity behind them caught him off guard. He nodded, mumbling that anyone would have done the same. She smiled faintly. "No, Daniel. Not everyone would have." Then she turned and walked away, leaving him stunned. From that day, something shifted. Amelia began to notice him, not just as an employee but as a person. She'd stop by the garage sometimes, asking about his work, even sharing coffee. The walls she'd built around herself started to crack. Daniel learned that her harshness wasn't cruelty, it was pain. She had lost her fiancé in an accident 2 years earlier, and since then, she'd buried herself in work to avoid feeling anything. The night he found her drunk was the anniversary of that loss. Over the weeks, they formed an unexpected friendship. She learned about Lily, how Daniel would work late just to afford her dance lessons, how he'd stay up helping her with homework. Amelia started leaving small gifts for Lily, books, art supplies, even a new backpack for school. Daniel tried to refuse, but she'd just smile and say, "Let me help. You've already helped me more than you know." But rumors began to swirl in the company. People whispered about the boss and the mechanic, about favoritism, about scandal. Daniel considered quitting, terrified that gossip would hurt Amelia's reputation. When he went to tell her, she looked hurt, not angry, but genuinely pained. "You think I care what they say?" she said quietly. "Daniel, for the first time in years, I feel human again. Don't take that away because people can't mind their own lives." Her words silenced him. Then one day, tragedy struck again. Daniel's daughter fell seriously ill. The hospital bills were far beyond what he could afford. He worked double shifts, barely sleeping, desperate to keep up. When Amelia found out, she didn't say anything at first, but that evening, she showed up at the hospital, quietly paying the remaining balance in full. Daniel tried to protest, tears in his eyes, but she only said, "You saved me when I was lost. Let me save you now." That night, as Lily slept peacefully, Daniel sat beside Amelia in the dim hospital hallway. She told him how that rainy night had changed her. "I was ready to give up," she whispered. "You reminded me there's still kindness left in this world." Daniel smiled softly. "And you reminded me I'm not alone." Months passed, and their bond deepened, not as boss and employee, but as two broken souls who helped each other heal. Amelia began visiting Daniel and Lily often, bringing warmth into their small home. Slowly, laughter replaced loneliness, and kindness grew where pain once lived. By the next spring, the auto shop had transformed too. Amelia expanded it, promoting Daniel to manager. She insisted it wasn't charity, it was trust. And Daniel, in turn, brought new life into the place, training young mechanics, giving chances to others who'd lost hope just like he once had. Their story wasn't about romance, it was about redemption. About how one act of kindness on a stormy night changed two lives forever. If this story touched your heart, please take a moment to like this video, share it, and subscribe to Kindness Tales. Every time you engage, you help spread stories that remind people the world still has good hearts beating quietly in the chaos. And before you go, tell us in the comments, do you believe one small act of kindness can change someone's life forever? Sparkling Heart.